Hello! In this video I'm going to be going over my UI setup and the add-ons that are involved in creating it. I'm not going to be going in depth into every single add-on and all the details and stuff, but I am going to give a brief overview of what the add-on is and how I use it and how it helps to create my UI. Now, when you're creating your UI, you've got to look at what your goals are. And for me, it was all about immersing myself deeper into the game and keeping nice, crisp, and clean and minimal UI setup. So for me, when I'm traveling around the world or going from place to place or just kind of casually standing on a rock looking around, I want to be able to see as much of the environment as possible and not have it all taken up by menu screens and things like that. So that was my main goal when it came to creating my UI for being outside of combat. Now my UI changes a little bit once I enter combat, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later on after we've gone through the different add-ons and what they do. So let's get started. I figure the easiest thing to do is go down the list of add-ons here. Some of these are going to be really simple and I don't even need to show anything, like Speedy Autoloot. This is an add-on that basically makes it so that when you right click on an enemy to loot them, it's already done and over with and you can move on to the next thing. You don't see the window pop up, nothing happens. You loot the mob in about, half a second. It's super fast. So it's a nice quality of life add-on, and I have a few of those in here. The next add-on that we have is Add-on Control Panel. That's what you're seeing here. This allows you to do a lot of interesting things with your add-ons. You can lock them, you can unlock them, you can create sets, and it's just a good add-on for managing your add-ons if you have a lot of add-ons. I feel like I'm going to be saying add-ons a lot in this video. Next up we have AdiBags. This is the bag add-on that I like to use. I like this because it will automatically sort the items in your bag into categories. As you can see here, I've got junk, trade skill, miscellaneous, armor, things like that. And you can go in and customize these yourself if you want to and make them, super specific if you want. Like you could have one for Azurite armor or pants pieces or that kind of stuff. So for me, this is a really nice way to look at the items in my bag and sort them out, especially as I go from alt to alt to alt and have to kind of sort out what's going on with everybody's different bags. The next add-on is Aurora. Aurora is a window theme add-on. Basically what this does is it changes my menu windows so that they have this kind of transparent black look to them instead of the traditional one. So you can look here, like here's my talent screen. If I go over to my talents, you can see that there. It adds a nice class theme to a lot of the menu options. If you look here, all my buttons when I hover over them are purple. This actually changes based on the class that I'm playing as, and this is for just about every single window that you can pop up. I really like this theme, and the nice thing about it is it's easy to set your other add-ons so that their backgrounds look similar to this, and this helps you make a nice cohesive looking UI. Next on the list is BasicMiniMap, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a minimap add-on that gives you more flexibility than the base level minimap, but it keeps it super simple. I don't need a lot of crazy stuff on my minimap. I just need to be able to see the general area that I'm in. I like to keep it small. I like to keep it simple. I like the square look because that matches the rest of my UI as well, and so that's what I use it for. Just a nice simple adjustment to the minimap to match the rest of my theme. It also makes it so that I can move this around wherever I want and increase or decrease the size as well. Next is Can I Mog It? Can I Mog It is a simple quality of life add-on that I use. It basically will put icons onto the various pieces of gear that I have in my bags and tell me whether or not I've collected the transmog for that item. So pretty simple add-on there, but it's nice to just be able to look at a glance and just go, yep, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that, and just be able to vendor that stuff. Next is CollectionShop. I showed this off in an add-on tutorial. It lets you find stuff in the auction house that you don't already have in your collection. So if you're looking for pets that you haven't collected because you're trying to get an achievement, or you're looking for new, sword transmogs that you don't have, this is a great add-on for that. CursorTrail will add a glowing trail effect to your mouse, and I currently have it set to only show in combat, but you can see here, once I've changed it, it just adds a little line, and you can customize this. You can make it bigger, smaller. I have it set to be really, really small, and what this does is it just helps you kind of keep track of where your mouse is at, especially in combat situations, because if you're anything like me, you have a tendency to like lose where your mouse is at on the screen, so this will help you find it really quickly. Next up is Executive Assistant. Executive Assistant is a nice list making add-on that you can use. For example, I have it, this is it right up here, and if I click on this drop down, it'll show me that, okay, for this list, this is my World Quest daily list, and what I can do is once I've done all the quests that are going to give me gear upgrades, I can click on this, and it'll show, hey, you've gotten all the stuff for gear upgrades. And then I go, well, what's my next main objective? Okay, do the emissary quest. All right, and then after that, what's the most important thing to me? Get more war resources. And so this will let you create checklists so that if you want to, you can get on your character and just boom, 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 go down the list. You can set your own priorities. You can have sub lists. It's really handy, and I use it a lot because I like to use it because I have so many alts, and what I can do is I can switch from alt to alt and make sure that, if my number one priority is to get all my gear upgrade world quest done on my alts, then I can make sure that, I check this box once I've done that, and then if I log into that alt later on, I can just look up there and go, oh yeah, okay, I already got the gear upgrades, maybe I want to move on to the next thing. The next add-on that I have is Experiencer, and that's the one you're seeing down here on the bottom. I've got a tutorial video for that made already, and this will essentially, it works as your XP bar. Now right now, since this character is at max level, I actually have it split into two. On the left side, it shows the reputation of the faction that I'm trying to gain reputation with. And then on the right side, it shows my Heart of Azeroth level. So it's a flexible tool, just puts a bar down there that you can modify. You can actually split it into three. You can have it, usually when I'm leveling, I just have one bar and it's my XP bar. Next is Garrison Mission Manager. I've got a video up for this one as well. It just helps you when you're doing your missions at your mission table on your ship. It'll help you see different configurations of heroes and what the success rate would be if you were to do a certain mission. So it's a nice quality of life upgrade for the mission table. Next I have Immersion. Immersion is an add-on that replaces the default chat UI when you're talking to NPCs and also the default quest UI. So for example, if I were to go up and talk to someone who isn't the flight master, let's say we went to the emissary here, you can see we've got a nice chat window that pops up here, and we've got our chat options over here as well. So this just takes everything out of the window over here where they show you everything at once, and instead turns it into more of a modern style RPG interface for questing and interacting mainly with NPCs. The next add-on I have is Immersive. I've got a video for this one, and basically all this does is hide different parts of the Blizzard UI interface. So for example, I have it set to hide action bars, and what you can do is if I reload, you can see there are going to be some things like my micro bar down here that are going to disappear right away. So like there's my micro bar, it just fades out. Everything that faded out is getting faded out by Immersive. And this helps me to clean up the UI and get rid of anything that I just don't want to see, or if there's something that I've replaced with a different add-on, then I can get rid of it with Immersive. The next add-on is Kaliel's Tracker. That is the quest log tracker up here. So instead of having the big, long, huge quest tracker over here, I've now got one that I can move around. I can set a maximum height so it will never get taller than this. Instead, I can scroll through. You're also able to do stuff like filter quests, so you can only see, maybe Warfront quests, or maybe only quests for the current zone. It's a really flexible quest tracker, and I just really like the ability to style the quest tracker and also you know, put it up here and make it so that it'll never be taller than this. I really like that, because a lot of times I find that with multiple alts, I end up with this situation where I have 24 out of 25 quests, and it's a huge list. Anytime I'm trying to make a video content, you just see this big quest thing over there, and you know, I just like the ability to modify that. So this is one of the best add-ons I've found for that. The next add-on is Leeattrex Maps. This one is pretty simple. All this does is reveal the maps. So it takes the fog of war off of the maps. Like, I think my Demon Hunter has never been to Northrend, but I can see all of this content here. There's no fog of war, and that's what Leeattrex Maps does. It's a really simple, lightweight add-on that gets that job done for me. Next is Masque. That's used to skin or theme some of the other add-ons that I have, and that's pretty much it. Next is Minimap button frame. So what this does is it takes all the buttons that are traditionally around your minimap and it puts them into this nice little frame here. So instead of having, you know, 8 million buttons all over the place, they're all in a nice row here. And if more get added, this will just keep extending out so that I just have a grid of the different stuff. And then I can click on it, for example, and bring up my missions or whatever else I need to in here. Next we have MogIt. MogIt is a pretty complicated add-on that I don't want to get into too much here, but what MogIt will do is it will allow you to do crazy stuff with gear previews. So you can like create a new preview, and within your preview you can change, you know, your race, you can change, you know, your gender, your weapon enchantments, all that kind of stuff. And then you can go in and you can add different items to the preview as well and see what those would look like on a particular character. Like I said, it's fairly complicated and definitely deserves its own video, but it helps you with transmog farming, finding exactly the piece that you want and where it comes from, and then creating different sets and outfits and things. Next we have Monar's Wardrobe Helper. All this does is it basically allows you to have a little bit of a bigger preview screen and a couple more options when you're looking at your transmog stuff. I have a lot of transmog add-ons because I go back and I farm a lot of transmog content. Next up is Mount Journal Enhanced. Mount Journal Enhanced will add a lot more options to your mounts for filtering. So if we go in here, you could see I've got a lot more things: sources, type, faction, family, expansion. You can also go in and you can set favorites per character so that when you use summon random favorite mount, it's on a character basis. For example, if I were to go in here and just switch this to all types, you can see that currently I have these 3 listed as favorites for this character. So if I went and added Black Drake as a favorite for this character, that would be added to the pool here, but it wouldn't be added to the pool for all my other characters. So really, really nice quality of life add-on. If you like mount collecting or you want to sort of role play and have different favorite mounts per character, which I tend to like to do, I like to make them match their transmogs or their class or, you know, that kind of stuff. So really good add-on for that. Next we have nPlates. I've got a video about nPlates, and that is just my nameplates here. You could see them popping up. A little bit different than the Blizzard style. You're able to tweak these. There's a lot of good nameplate add-ons out there. nPlates is just the one that I've particularly chosen to use. There are other ones that definitely allow you to do and see a lot more than nPlates does, but I like it for its simplicity while still retaining a good amount of customization. OPie, I've talked about several times before. It's the add-on that I get asked about the absolute most. It is my keybind add-on, and it is the one that gives me these circle radial menus and allows me to cast my abilities and have everything keybound to like 4 or 5, 6 different keys, and that's it. So I do have a big video talking about this, and I always get asked about it, so you know, I'll refer you to that video, and then, you know, if you're in stream or something and you have a question, that's perfectly fine. But for example, I can, you know, Fell Rush here. And this allows me to look at my abilities whenever I want without having bars down here and stuff as well. Next up after Circle Pie is going to be Pawn. I've got a video on this as well, and basically what Pawn does is Pawn allows me to see what percentage of an upgrade a piece of gear is going to be. So for example, out of all this stuff that I have here, nothing is an upgrade for me. I can scroll through and yeah, I've got no upgrades. But essentially what this will do is it will tell me at the bottom of a tooltip for a piece of gear how big of an upgrade it is for me. For example, if I switch out my pieces of gear here, you can see that, you know, this is telling me at the very bottom this is a 7% upgrade for my Havoc specialization, and it's a 4% upgrade for my Vengeance specialization. So that's what I use to keep track of whether or not a piece of gear is actually an upgrade for my character, which will factor in, you know, not just item level, but stats and things like that as well. Next up we have Prat. Prat is a chat add-on. This allows me to do things like change the shape of the chat log pretty drastically. It also will save like your logs from before you logged in. So you like your last session, it'll save some of the chat. It's just a nice handy upgrade to the default chat window. Specifically, I like the fact that it lets me create more of a tall, slim window that I could put over here in the corner. It also lets me fade it out after a certain period of time as well. And I can get it to match the theme of the rest of my UI. After Pratt, we've got shadowed unit frames. So these are the unit frames that I use. If you don't know what unit frames are, those are like your party frames and your raid frames. This here is my character frame. So instead of being up here in the corner, I've got it down here. If I type here, then you can see a good example of what those frames will look like. So this is showing me my player frame. It's showing me my focus target frame and my pet frame, and then I have like my party frame here and raid frames. And all this stuff is fully customizable. I don't have it 100% where I want it to be just quite yet, but this is what I like to use. It's fairly simple, straightforward. I like the theme. I like the customizations that you can do to it as far as, you know, making things you know, like the player health bars themed after the different classes. It's very, very nice. You can do everything from have like no model at all like I have here to having a 2D picture of the character, a 3D picture. It's very, very nice. So that is shadow unit frames. Then we have SubSpec. This is something that I mainly use for my guide videos, but SubSpec allows you to go into your talent tree and save different talent configurations and then quickly hot swap from one to the other. So I could add this as a spec, like let's just call it specialization talent build number 1. And then I could create another one where I change talents, save it as talent number 2. And then I can quickly, with the press of a button, switch between those talents really, really quickly. So that's nice if you're constantly changing your talents around. Like I said, I mostly use it for my guide videos so I can quickly show the differences between 2 or 3 different talent builds. Next, I have TinyTooltip. TinyTooltip is the tooltip add-on that I use. So this gives you, as you know, traditionally your WoW tooltip is down here in the corner. This allows me to make it so that my tooltip will show up at the mouse cursor. That kind of like puts the information right in front of you. I can look at this guy and go, oh, yep, he's an orc warrior, he's horde, he's on the Cenarius server. I've got it set so that the color changes based on the class. Like if I look at this guy, he's a rogue, you know, that's yellow. We've got a warlock, paladin, all that kind of stuff. And I also have this set so that the tooltip will move back down towards the corner when I'm in combat, so that I'm not constantly seeing a bunch of crazy tooltips when I'm trying to target things. And you'll see that in just a minute. Next up, after TinyTooltip, I have Vendor. Vendor is a programmable vendor add-on. So what it will allow you to do is it will allow you to set different rules and conditions for when to automatically sell items from your bag. So for example, this is currently set to sell all gray items, all low-level food, all toys that I already know, any green gear that's under item level 250 and any rare gear that's under item level 250. Now this does have some additional conditions as well, like it won't sell your transmog items automatically, and you can go in and add your own custom definitions and tell it, okay, well I want to sell green items that are soul bound only. Or whatever rules you want to come up with, you could program them in here so that whenever you walk up to a vendor, it'll automatically sell everything that you wanted to sell, and you don't have to sit there and look through and go, okay, sell that, sell that. This, you just set up the rules, and then when you go and right click on a vendor, it automatically sells everything that falls within the parameters of those rules. So it's really nice. It's like the sell junk add-on, but on steroids. And then finally, the last, well, nope, not the last, second to last add-on I have is WeakAuras. WeakAuras you should be familiar with. Those give you notifications about different abilities in combat. This is the setup that I have. We're going to look at it a little bit more in combat. But you can see that currently I've got this set up to give me different pieces of information when I'm in combat, and when I'm out of combat it hides everything so I don't see it, so it doesn't clutter up my screen. And then the very last add-on that I have is World Quest List, which I've gone over before, but this essentially allows me to see a list of all the world quests out to the side of my map when I'm looking, and I can use this to scroll through and check out the different quests. There are filters on the side, so right now I'm just looking at quests that either give me gear or give me honor-bound faction rep, because that's the two things I care about on this character right now: getting gear upgrades and getting reputation with the honor-bound. So this just is a nice add-on to help you sort through all the world quests as well. Now, two honorable mention add-ons that I don't currently have installed. One is Postmaster for mail. I don't use mail all that often, so I've stopped using it in recent years, but Postmaster is a great add-on for managing your mail. And then also Altaholic. That is a great add-on if you have multiple characters. I don't currently have it installed because every time I tried to install it recently, there were some weird bugs going on, but provided it's working the way it's intended to, that's a really great add-on for being able to look at different information for each of your alt characters on a single character instead of having to log out, log in, log out, log in, and check everything yourself. So those are the two honorable mentions. So what I wanted to show here is how my UI changes when I go into combat. So if we go over here, you're going to see that now my WeakAuras have popped up. And for the most part, that's about the only thing that really shows is my WeakAuras. And you can see that once I'm out of combat, that goes away. Now the other thing with this is I mentioned, as you can see here, this tooltip is at my mouse cursor. And I've got that set. If I get into combat, now it's back down here at the bottom. So that doesn't get in my way. Once I start combat, everything is nice, clean, and crisp. And I'll kind of go over the way I have my WeakAuras set up here. In short, I'm going to do an in-depth WeakAuras tutorial a little bit later. But essentially what I have set up here is I've got it set up to show me the cooldowns that I should be using really frequently right here. And when I do use them, it goes away. I've got my buff timers here, so this is telling me how long I have Metamorphosis and Immolation left. And you can see that as soon as an ability that I have determined is something I should use on cooldown is available, it pops back up at the side, and I'm able to see, oh hey, you should probably use this ability. So you can see right here, it's going to pop up and show me as soon as I-beam was off cooldown, it shows me that it's there. If I use it, it goes away. And then if I were to wait for I-beam to come back off cooldown and for me to have enough resources to use it, then it would pop back up over there as well. So on the right hand side, I've got the abilities that I should be using on cooldown every time. They pop up and they flash at me and go, use me, every time that they're available. And then if we look on the other side, go find some more enemies real quick. I'm killing them a little bit too fast here. On the other side, I have my sort of more long cooldowns. So these are situational use cooldown abilities. For example, I have my stun here at the top, and if I were to use my stun, then it goes on cooldown. It's not supposed to have the second number there. That is because I have this checked. But it kind of grays out and it shows me the countdown for that ability. And then down here above my health bar, right there, I have all the abilities that I use a lot or situationally that have charges and really short cooldowns. So for example, I can see whether or not, I have a charge of Fell Rush, or I can see whether or not I have enough resources to use my Blade Dance and if it's off cooldown. So for example, I can go over here, and you can see that this is on cooldown and I don't have resources for it. But once I have the resources and it's off cooldown, it pops back up, and then if I use it, I can see right there that that's out. I can see that I've got my Vengeful Retreat, I've got, Fell Rush, all these different abilities there. So those are my commonly used abilities. And so that's how my UI changes outside of, or once you're into combat. And as you can see, like, it stays pretty clean, it stays pretty minimal. And it still provides me with all the information that I need. Now, obviously, if you're a super hardcore raider or you're pushing really, really high mythic content, you're probably going to want even more information than what I have, but that's fine. What I have works for the content that I do. So hopefully that's given you some insight into the way that I set up my UI and maybe piqued your curiosity about some of the add-ons that I use, or potentially building your own UI yourself. Now, I know this is going to come up, so I wanted to address it here at the end before the video is finished. Some people are probably going to ask, why don't I use a total overhaul add-on like LVUI? And the reason that I don't use that, there's a couple of reasons. With LVUI, I don't like having to manually update it myself, but that's not enough reason to not use it. The truth is, even with LVUI, it provides you with a cohesive looking interface, but it still gives me way more information than what I want. There's too many windows, there's too many things, and what I end up doing with LVUI is just disabling a bunch of stuff anyway. And when I do that, I lose the flexibility and options that I'd like to have. So I used LVUI quite a lot in Warlords of Draenor and Cataclysm, but kind of into Warlords of Draenor, I started experimenting with other things, and then in Legion, I tried all different kinds of different UIs as well. And eventually I just decided that, what I wanted to do was have more control, more flexibility over each individual element of my UI, and that led me to stepping away from using stuff like LVUI, where it's just a total overhaul that they dictate, and more towards finding the actual add-on that I felt best did the job for what I wanted for each specific element on my screen. So like I said, hopefully that has given you some insight into my UI, maybe piqued your curiosity about some of the add-ons I have. Like I said, you can check out my add-ons and tutorials, or add-on tutorial video playlist, and if you don't see one of the add-ons I mentioned here in there, it'll eventually be there. But if you really want to know more about it, just post something in the comments below, and I'll prioritize making a tutorial on that over making tutorials on the other stuff. So thanks everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, throw me a like, check out some of my other videos, and subscribe if you think it's worth it. And I hope you're having a good time in World of Warcraft, and as always, I'll see you on the next video.